Hi, my name is Steve. This is Steve and the Music, and today we're talking about Because the Internet by Childish Gambino. Now, I wrote this review prior to reading the accompanying screenplay at BecauseTheInter.net, links in the doobly-doo, so I'll just add a few thoughts on that now. This probably would be a more negative review if I'd read that first. The character doesn't have any motivation or justification for their sadness until halfway through, the scenes don't logically progress to one another, and trying to sync up the music with the reading and the video portions just doesn't work. I appreciate that Gambino is experimenting with the way in which we experience music, but just this didn't add anything to the album for me. So on to the review. Wait, who is Childish Gambino? Well, he's Donald Glover, internet celebrity, stand-up comedian, former 30 Rock writer, and now former Community star. But it's hard to hear a comedian anywhere on Because the Internet, the rapper's sophomore album. He's come a long way under both names, from making YouTube videos called Bro Rape to writing the dark, symbolic lapping for the wrong reasons as Donald Glover. And from the ludicrous humor of his breakout single Freaks and Geeks to the brutal realism of Because the Internet as Childish Gambino. Plus, there's the 75-page screenplay accompanying the album and the theories that Gambino has been modeling his wardrobe and behavior over the past year to fit the character in the screenplay. He even opens the album by screaming, "Who am I?" as if it's a rhetorical question, but by the end of it he's saying, "I don't know who I am anymore," and I mean, where's the line between Donnie G and Gambino? So once again, who is Childish Gambino? Because this can't be the same Childish Gambino that we heard on his debut album, Camp. The big cheesy samples that sounded weirdly 2002, gone. The reckless, racist misogyny and continuous sexual pride, gone. In fact, he can't even seem to handle the girls that he can get at this point, rapping, but afterwards it was awkward as fuck because I was nervous as fuck and I could not get it up. I need a minute, cold water to my face. I couldn't finish, got the Uber from her place, on the worst guys. And his iconic smart aleck wordplay, gone too, and it's mostly for the best. There's one track on Because the Internet that sounds like the old Gambino, the mid-album sweatpants, the finger-pointing rebuttal to music critics saying, "Rich kid asshole, paint me as a villain," in which he still spins street cred witticisms like half Thai thicky, all she wanna do is Bangkok, and I got more tail than Petco, you faker than some Sweet and Low. It stands out like a sore thumb. Camp just sounded like he was trying to play with the big kids, but Because the Internet is infinitely more confident, cohesive, and lasting. And as the title would suggest, it's also irresistibly modern. Gambino is drawn between the frustration that the internet causes him on a daily basis and how he probably wouldn't have a career without it. As he raps, "Retweet the tweet, then regret the mentions. We are the wireless survivors of things gone, slaves to the unnamed, never live long." I mean, the official album cover is a goddamn gif, and he even has an official Because the Internet meme generator on his website. You'll also hear almost no features on this album because they would just distract from the purpose. Outside of a fairly wasted appearance from Chance the Rapper, this is the Childish Gambino show, and for good reason. Honesty and introspection are rare commodities in rap, which generally focuses on looking cool instead, but Gambino doles it out by the handful on this album. Gambino is rarely so blunt anymore unless he really wants to give a line impact. Otherwise, his writing style has become much more intricate and interesting. You can debate whether or not Because the Internet is a concept album, but it's certain that it has a character arc, whether it's Donald's, Gambino's, or the character from the screenplays. The deeper you go, the darker it gets. He expresses himself most acutely on the lead single 3005, with lines like, "Sad as shit as I'm bad as it is, took the beans from the cabinet, sorry I'm just scared of the future." On the spoken word track No Exit, an insomniatic Gambino sees a brown recluse spider in the corner of his room, gets up, drives around the city alone, convinces himself he can kill the spider if he goes back, but he can only sit on his bed and look at the recluse. The metaphor's not subtle, but it's effective. Granted, the character does have to go through his arc, so some of the early tracks like World Star and Sweatpants do sound immature, but they only make the developments later that much more meaningful. Production-wise, he doesn't manage to distinguish himself in the same way. You can hear traces of Kanye West, Drake, Tyler the Creator, Frank Ocean, and plenty of others, and even if he borrows from the best, he fails to make it completely his own. So you can find moments of musical clarity on Because the Internet, like the woozy dreamscape of Flight of the Navigator, the aggressive samples and stop-and-start vocals of Crawl, and the pure desolation of the album closer Life the Biggest Troll. Another standout in this regard is Zealots of Stockholm, which starts with an airy, uninteresting opening just to shock you when it crashes in distortion halfway through. The tracks with the more R&B focus, like Shadows and Pink Toes, generally don't stick the same way that the hip-hop ones do. Gambino's real strength is as a lyricist, not as a composer. Still, he's a surprisingly talented singer, and he handles the tracks with confidence, even if not with greatness. Camp was one of the most divisive albums of 2011, and Because the Internet will likely go down the same way. Many will call the 19-track monstrosity bloated and overdone. They'll call the screenplay project pretentious and pointless. They'll call his production style derivative and tragically hip. And all of those have a degree of truth to them. At 30 years old, Gambino sounds much younger, and he still has a lot of maturing to do, both emotionally and artistically. But on this album, he puts that immaturity at center stage and forces you to go through it with him. And maybe that last accusation is the most accurate, because this album certainly is awfully hip and awfully tragic. Because the Internet gets an 8 out of 10, and once again, that's without judging by the merits of the screenplay at all. But what did you think? Did you listen to the album? Did you like it? Let me know in the comments and subscribe if you want to see more.